where Arthur said, would you please ask Professor Dershowitz how it is that Trump could get this case, if he needs to the U.S. Supreme Court and past what will be a heavily weighted Democrat bench at both levels, immediate appellate and Court of Appeals in New York?
He should make an appeal to the New York Court of Appeals, asking them to bypass the appellate division, because he's not going to get justice in the appellate division. The appellate division are Manhattan judges that are elected, and they don't want to have to face their families and say, we're the judge who allowed Trump to become the next president of the United States. They don't want to be Dershowitz. They don't want to be treated in New York the way I have been treated in Martha's Vineyard and Harvard and New York, because I defended Donald Trump. So they should skip the appellate division, go to the New York Court of Appeals, ask for an expedited appeal. In the meantime, prepare for an expedited appeal in the United States Supreme Court and say that this was a rush to try to get this case a verdict, a conviction before election, and the Supreme Court of the United States has an obligation to review this case before the election so that the American public knows whether or not Donald Trump is guilty or not guilty of these made-up crimes. This is worse than Stalin and Lavrenti Beria. Lavrenti Beria said to Stalin, "Show me the man and I'll find you the crime." Bragg tried to find the crime, but he couldn't, because his predecessor couldn't find the crime, the U.S. attorney couldn't find the crime, the FEC couldn't find the crime. So he did worse than what happened in the Soviet Union. He made up a crime that didn't exist, and he charged a political opponent with it. This will create a terrible precedent for how local DAs will become involved in trying to influence not only local elections, but national elections as well.
Oh, let me ask you a follow-up. Our audience probably knows that you're a famous criminal defense attorney and Harvard law professor, but really you're one of the most famous appellate lawyers in the country. And that's where we are now. So if you had to consult with Team Trump on grounds for appeal, not the everything but the kitchen sink approach, which I know you take, but like your top three favorites in this case, what comes to mind?
Number one is Stormy Daniels. The New York Court of Appeals recently held that the Harvey Weinstein, certainly not a popular defendant, his conviction had to be reversed because the court allowed the introduction of too many salacious other accusations that really had nothing to do with the trial, and also threatened to put in other material if he took the witness stand. So the first thing I would do is try to piggyback on the New York Court of Appeals reversal of the Weinstein case and talk about how he improperly admitted Stormy Daniels, particularly the details, the positions they took during sex, the kind of aftershave he used, the pajamas that he wore, and
the lack of birth control.
Yeah, even more, right, even more if he took the witness stand. That would be number one. Number two, I think, would be the failure to give an instruction on the missing witness. The way the judge and the prosecution handled Alan Wieselberg really denied the defendant the right to a presumption that the only reason he wasn't called was because he would not have corroborated the very important testimony, lying testimony, of Michael Cohen. So those would be the two things. I would also focus on change of venue and the fact that the crime was manufactured. There are so many issues that are good. Even a minor technical issue, the judge closed the courtroom to the public. I was there. I was a witness. He didn't throw me out, but he threw out the media. And, the Sixth Amendment doesn't say partially public trial. It says a completely public trial. So I would emphasize that as well, although it would be hard to show prejudice from that. But there are some. This is a winnable appeal. This is an appeal that a first-year law student could win if the defendant's name wasn't Donald Trump and it wasn't New York.
I
Megan,
completely agree with that. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
Jump in for 1 second, because I don't know if Alan will remember, but Alan and I and Harvey actually got on a call, and I won't talk about the substance of the call, but it was the Saturday, the Saturday before he got remanded. And I will tell you that when you compliment Alan as being, he's far and away the appellate lawyer for the ages, but he correctly predicted what would eventually happen in that case
Wow.
before Harvey went into custody. He went into custody in 36 hours later, but he correctly predicted. Alan's point about the Weinstein reversal, I would go one step farther, because that opinion also said that and excoriated the then trial judge, who's no longer on the bench in New York. He excoriated him for telling Harvey that if you take the stand,
right.
this Molyneux evidence is going to come in, meaning the other act's evidence, basically freezing the defendant from taking the stand. This judge, in this case, did the exact same thing. It's almost like he read the opinion and said, I'm going to commit the exact same error in this case with Donald Trump that just got reversed in Harvey Weinstein. It's mine.
And the reason he did it is because he knows the defendant in this case name is Donald Trump, and courts don't reverse convictions of Donald Trump. There's a special law for Donald Trump, which is why I named my book Get Trump. It wasn't my title. That's the title that was devised by Bragg. He ran on that principle. They know, prosecutors and judges know, the law doesn't apply to Donald Trump because the goal is to make sure he doesn't become the next president of the United States.
Because the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take